The RacingLine Volkswagen Audi Racing Championship, to give it its full title. This is how the grid lines up. We'll get into the details of the various classes in a moment or two. David Lawrence put his Seat Leon Cupra on pole position alongside a similar car of Paul Roderson, former Mazda MX-5 frontrunner Paul Roderson from many a year ago. John Wyatt starts on row 2 alongside Kerry Lewis. They'll be battling for class honours as well in their pair of Mark 5 Golf GTIs, with Tim Evans and Oliver Devine King sharing row number 3 in a pair of Audi TTs. Then it's Paul Dunningham, and Christopher Garnham next, an Audi S3 alongside an Audi A3, with Paul Hoggins and Chris Adams next in line. Just outside the top 10, Jonathan Halliwell and David Richardson together on row 6. Row 7, Stephen Watson and Dawn Butcher, with Harley Young and Matt Anderson on the 8th row at the back of the grid. So the cars then making their way around on the green flag lap, as we said, and it won't take them too long on this shorter Snetterton 200 layout to make it back onto the grid. Scott, as I mentioned, plenty of different classes to keep an eye on here. This is a championship that there were a few changes made over the winter within the BRSCC's portfolio, and we've got essentially a few different championships running out on track together, haven't we?
Yeah, this is an amalgamation of both what was the Audi TT Cup Racing Championship, or still is, but also the Classic VW Cup, and they've come into one championship together to amalgamate the two. You've got the Audi TT Cup class cars. There are some cars which used to race in that championship, which are now to Classic VW Cup spec because they've been modified to a certain amount. You've got the modified production and classic classes, and modified class has a manufacturer of 1965 to current. You've got 2000 to current for production classes, and classic is of cars between 1965 to 2000. There is also an open 5 open classes and an invitation class. There's plenty of scope for various Volkswagen Audi Group racing cars that can race. It isn't just VWs and Audis. You can have Seat, Skodas, anything that technically runs under the Volkswagen Audi Group racing banner, which is quite convenient to have. So you can get some quite extreme machines. We've got a nice mixture of cars here too, and great to see cars different age. You've got a more modern Audi TT Mark II compared to the Mark IV Golf GTI in there, and also others like we've got a couple that are Seat and a more modern Cupra on the front row of the grid. Lots of different variety, and it's always been quite a popular and well-versed championship series, at least Classic VW Cup. Now for the first time they're kind of running as a championship within VARG, and it should be quite fun to see how these guys get on. Had a decent first couple of races at Brands Hatch a few weeks ago. Now they're out here at Snetterton in beautiful sunshine, and a couple of Cupras on the front row of the grid, which looks like it could be quite a drag race down towards Ritchie's for the first time. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting this, because you've got David Lawrence in that highly modified but essentially production-based Seat Leon Cupra, Area Motorsport running that car, and alongside what looks suspiciously like a TCR spec Seat Cupra in the hands of Paul Roderson. I'm fairly certain it is. I should know, I suppose. So those two cars might look very similar, but built to very different sets of regulations. In qualifying, though, they were separated by only 6.5 tenths of a second, which on a reasonably long lap is not all that much at all. 2 by 2 then they'll line up on the grid, and we get ready to go racing for the first time this weekend on the Snetterton 200 circuit. David Lawrence in the red, white and black car, with the majority white Cupra alongside of Paul Roderson, aiming to beat him into Rich's corner. Then it will be a 15-minute race, and the rev's starting to rise. The red lights are on, out they go, and it's not a very good start by the looks of it for John Wyatt, but he does eventually scrabble off the line. Very evenly matched between the two Cupras on the front row, but it should be David Lawrence from pole position who converts it into the race leader Rich's corner. Indeed it is. The Area Motorsport prepared car manages to hold the early advantage through Rich's, then down towards the Wilson hairpin. All of this is exactly the same as the 300 layout. It's from this point onwards really where things start to change. There's drama further back, and almost contact as the 46 car of Paul Dunningham lost it under braking. That, Scott, could have been an awful lot worse.
He wasn't awake after qualifying. He's definitely awake now after losing the back end towards Montreal. Down the back straight for the first time. Lawrence leads it from Roderson in second place. Challenge for third on now between Tim Evans in one of the Audi TT Mark IIs. He's got Kerry Lewis in the white and green Golf Mark V alongside. That's for fourth, in fact, because just in front of them is John Wyatt in that gold Mark V GTI into Brundle Nelson. Of course, those are the 200 layout, but this is very much more akin to what the old Snetterton used to be like up until about 2010, 2011, when the changes were made to make the 300 circuit. So we used to call this basically the old Snetterton. We went through Ritchie's, then what used to be called Seat, down what was called the Revit straight, and back into the S's once again. So a bit more old school this weekend, some old school cars in the field, as now you can see Kerry Lewis under threat this time now from the other Audi TT that was on the third row. Oliver Devine King up the inside into Murray's, pretty straightforward pass, and that's him up into the top top 6.
Yes, it was Oliver who nearly got T-boned by Paul Dunningham down at the hairpin on lap 1, but thankfully disaster was averted. It's nearly a 1.7 second lead for David Lawrence then at the end of the opening lap. Roderson at the moment struggling to go with him. Wyatt and Evans, they both are running within the same class, so they're fighting for a class win. You can see the various classes denoted by the different coloured number backgrounds on the timing tower. Good side-by-side battling going on further back. Meanwhile, that is the 42 car once again in the middle of the action, as that was Dawn Butcher, wasn't it, the Mark 5 Golf GTI, trying to make a position up through the first corner. They head then out onto the Bentley Straight and towards the braking zone at Brundle and Nelson, and great variety of cars, some quicker in a straight line than others, and that's yielding some overtaking opportunities maybe into Brundle and Nelson. I think we've just had a change for third there. Tim Evans, I reckon, got up the inside and ahead of John Wyatt. That's for the class lead as well. We'll pick up on that in a moment or two as the midfield battle continues to rage on.
Yeah, so Kerry Lewis has got back past Oliver Devine King, so the Golf has got back past the TT. We've got 2 of the Audi A3s in the mix. This is the recovering number 46, the silver car of Paul Dunningham that was almost backwards going to Montreal on lap number 1. Re-gathered that one up nicely. He's also got Chris Garnham behind him and another of the Audi A3s in the mix. So now you watch Tim Evans, who, fun fact, when the Audi TT Cup Racing Championship was being put together, his car was the basis for the regulations. That was the kind of the test car. So ultimately, Tim Evans has argued more mileage in a spec TT like that, just with a few differences for this championship, than anyone else. He's still got John Wyatt on his tail, a rather smart-looking gold Mark 5, one of the prettiest cars on the grid, I think I have to admit. And as he keeps up the pursuit down towards the Montreal hairpin, it's only a very brief hairpin because, of course, they turn in, turn right, and then just flick back to the left and back onto the now Williams straight for the third time of asking. And it's out in front. Lawrence has got a 3-second gap, but Roderson, who has raced in this series before and has done it in, of all cars, a Skoda Octavia, which is quite unique. He's done that before and brought that out for a few races, but he's obviously now either purchased himself or decided the Cupra is a slightly more competitive car. But with it being four-wheel drive, it can be slightly heavy, but he's managed to get some pace out of it in the past.
Yes, most definitely so. Here comes this ongoing battle, meanwhile, between Oliver Devine King and Paul Dunningham, and Devine King will just about defend the position into Brundle and Nelson, but that Audi does look rapid in a straight line, doesn't it? They've got the 15 car just in behind. That's the Audi A3 of Christopher Garnham, behind the S3 of Paul Dunningham. Same generation of Audi, not a huge amount to choose performance-wise between those two, and they're not a million miles behind Kerry Lewis, who has drifted away slightly from the top two within his class. Tim Evans and John Wyatt up the road. Through the final turn at Murray's, get a little look there at these controversial new curbs that have been fitted to a couple of parts of the circuit over the winter. Not proving hugely popular amongst the drivers, it must be said, but they are seemingly deterring people from corner cutting too much, so I guess they're doing their job. Yeah,
I was doing a track walk on Thursday evening with a few people, with George Grant and with Vlad Vasiliev, Ted Bradbury, and also Mike Devlin in Fun Cup circles. And the one in particular that caught my eye was the huge one that's on the inside of Brundle, which Nelson, which you don't really want to smash that, particularly in the Fun Cup, as Garnham looks to the outside of Oliver Devine King, tries to get the switch back, but because it's quite a tight run, you have to really compromise your run through Montreal and kind of really tuck right to the inside through Montreal to set yourself up to be on the right racing line to get the best possible exit onto the Williams straight, and it's not an easy thing to do, particularly when you've got cars around you that are battling. Two Audi A3s at play, with Devine King's car sort of falling backwards into the top 10, but still having a good battle between these two Audi A3s. They look pretty evenly matched. As they come back into Brundle and Nelson, you'll see just on the inside, the huge kind of mound just on the inside there. Definitely Fun Cup car or BAG car or anything else or not, you don't really want to smash that, because you might have a bit of a bill for repairing your suspension, or at least a new front bumper if you hit that too hard. Yes, definitely so. That's going to be a talking point, I think, over the course of the weekend, and certainly through that 4-hour Fun Cup race a bit later on today. Oliver Devine King then, having now fallen behind Paul Dunningham, wants to try and do something about that, launches to the inside into the final corner. Dunningham snatches a break. He was doing that in qualifying this morning. I spotted down at that part of the circuit. Look, though, at the torque of the Audi as it drags out of the final corner, pulls alongside the Audi TT. I'd say the torque of the Audi, they're all Audis, but the Audi S3 gaining the position and bringing with it, in fact, the Audi A3 of Christopher Garnham. So 2 places lost that time for Oliver Devine King, but an interesting battle this, with the Audi TT seemingly the more agile, the more nimble and manoeuvrable of the 3 cars, but in a straight line definitely being outgunned at the moment by the 2 cars which are now ahead of it and likely to streak even further ahead of it as we head down the back straight. Oliver Devine King might struggle now to keep up. Yeah, it's a classic mix of power versus handling, really. We see more battles going on. That was the 53, the rather pretty-looking Volkswagen Scirocco. That is of Watson, that came across the line in 9th position. And that car, which is currently at the moment, that was Stephen Watson. Started 13th, so he's up 4 spots where he was inside the top 10. And he's back at the moment with Paul Hoggins and Chris Adams, and that little scrap going on for the base of the top 10 positions. Oliver Divine King, who did have some good pace initially, he's starting to succumb to the slightly more powerful A3s. But we lost one, in fact.
Yes.
We lost Christopher Garland because Paul Dunningham we've lost, because Garland's gone through. And Divine King with so much power and grip around the outside. I'm not sure how many people can do that, but he's definitely showing the TT's a lot more agile. Gets past Garnham and just look on back on the exit, puts his foot down. I think he also has 4-wheel drive, at least one of these Audi A3s. And again, it's the punch off the corner that really helps him out. There goes Kerry Lewis. He's on a race of his own. Getting encouragement from the pit wall. Come on, speed up. They've just gone past half distance in this race. Garnham looks as though he's a little more comfortable, but it's now a slightly heavier but more powerful 4-wheel drive Audi versus the front-wheel drive but lighter and more nimbler Audi TT, and Divine King has the undercut on the inside towards Montreal. Garnham gives him the space, gets the switch back, and again he knows he'll set him up onto the right, onto the straight, put his foot down, and he should power past the TT once again. It's entertaining to watch, but I suspect for Oliver Divine King and possibly for Chris, not quite as fun for them.
No, definitely not. Dunningham, by the way, is in the pit lane, so his car made it back around, but sadly going no further in the race. We do get the overtake there between Garnham and Oliver Divine King, but Oliver will come back at him again under braking here into Brundle, very late on the brakes, and again the Audi TT able to use its strong suit, its extra capability under braking, to make the overtake stick. So Oliver Divine King gets ahead, but he's just not going to be able to get away. Although it's the first lap in quite some time that he's been in clean air coming into this final sector through the never-ending right-hander at Coram. And look, he is now actually gapping the car behind reasonably well, enough to stay ahead by the time they reach Riches. Well, we're about to find out.
Yeah, it's one of those classic cases where he'll have enough in a slipstream. It really is raw power from the A3, and we'll see how much he can try and pull away down the straight. As he comes down the straight. Should actually mention also, as it has clearly stated on the actual timing film, Chris Garnham's car is front-wheel drive. There are Audi 3s that are, some that are four-wheel drive, but this one clearly says Audi A3 FWD, which definitely means front-wheel drive in my interpretations. So they come across the line. Just quick checking with the leaders. It's now almost 10 seconds, Lawrence to Evans.
Oh, dear.
That's John Wyatt out of third place, 5 from the underneath the Mark 5 Golf. Unfortunately, that's his race going no further. He's trying to go faster to at least get somewhere that's safer, I imagine, not to try and carry on. He should go straight on because he realises the car is, hopefully he realises the car has at least gone something. He's losing pace now, so I'd imagine that will be it. And he's already lost something. He's lost, that looks like oil or something, or some kind of fluid on the rear tyres. Now he realises, rolls it gently back towards the barrier, and I'm afraid that is his race done and dusted.
I'm not seeing any slippery surface flags down there, and it's fairly obvious to me that the surface is now quite slippery. And into the pit lane as well is the 55 car of David Lawrence. So the race Paul Robinson, sorry, 56 is Lawrence, 55 Paul Robinson, so he's pitted from the lead, and David Lawrence now is clearly out in front.
I think he was from second.
He was, sorry, you're right.
Lawrence is out in front by 10 seconds. That's probably the reason why the gap went out even further, because he's now struggling. Just saw a quick glimpse there of George Grant and Abby Eaton as John White has carried on, which is quite extraordinary. So the trouble is, though, is that if he is leaking fluid, it's now possibly leaking. If we have to suspect because we don't know exactly, although it's giving telltale signs. You never can tell just yet unless someone goes spinning off. But
well, he went spinning off, in fairness. That was my first clue.
And he gave me a look at the comment box like, really? You should doubt there's fluid coming out? But John White's carrying on. That's always the danger, because he obviously realised something, he's not all is right with that car. I'd imagine the flame was coming was enough a sign. He didn't spot that coming through. He has got through Murray's, and fair play, he's got it back to the garage, which is a good quick effort on his part, but at the same time, it does beg the question, from halfway down the Williams straight all the way up towards the pit entrance, how much fluid or some kind of water, oil, coolant has been laid down? How much of a danger is that going to be? Will it need to be cleared up substantially before we get our next race on?
Yes, well, and what does that mean when the leaders barrel off into Brundle and Nelson next time flat out? Because we saw John Wyatt spinning on seemingly his own oil, and that oil is still very much going to be on the racetrack, so that's going to make things a bit tricky. Pit lane then becoming a busy place, and the team will go to work on that car, hopefully to get it sorted for race 2, but that's perhaps looking a little unlikely. Down the back straight comes the Scirocco, staying well off the racing line, which tells me that the drivers are seeing the oil on the track and they're doing their very best not to drive over it. Down at Brundle and Nelson, that's going to become a little bit harder because you have to turn into the corner, you have to go across the slippy bit of the road, but they've handled it nicely. The pair of Sciroccos actually making their way through. Jonathan Halliwell in the 24 car, just in behind the other Scirocco, Stephen Watson. They started the other way round, so Watson's found a way past Halliwell at some point in the race. There's the number 6 car of Chris Adams, which was the lone Class C car. His older generation Golf GTI will not have any challenges within class, but he's running reasonably strong 7th place overall. Ahead of this then, the fight for 8th position between the two Sciroccos, which run in different classes, but clearly are pretty evenly matched.
Seems to be. Good straight line pace for both of them as they come down the pit straight. They've also got behind them David Richardson, who's running in P10. That's the sole car, at least one of the 2 cars that's running in the Audi TT Cup class as they come through Richie's corner now with just under 3 minutes to go. We're currently at the moment on lap number 9 of this race. Back into the Montreal hairpin they go. And slightly different specification. Well, I said it's slightly different. They look fairly similar visibly, but obviously in terms of pace, it looks as though that Stephen Watson's car looks a little more comfortable out in front. The heat haze off the back showing just how warm it is out there already this afternoon. And Richardson just, I think, probably just peeking out not to get too much of a tow, because if he stays there too much, it might start to raise the temperatures in the engine a little bit too much, so keeps tabs on that one. Just in the background, I can see there's another car that's popping back. There's Dawn Butcher's Mark 5 Golf GTI. I recognise that in orange and black as they come through.
Indeed so. Round Nelson goes the David Richardson Audi, and there, the 24 of Jonathan Halliwell. So Halliwell's dropped back then, has he not? Yes, he was ahead of David Richardson. He was on the tail of Stephen Watson, so something's happened to him on this lap. Not sure exactly what, but Jonathan Halliwell losing quite a bit of ground. Maybe had a drama somewhere on the fluid. I noticed they had surface flags even up at the Wilson hairpin, so most of the lap now seemingly has got some sort of fluid on the circuit, and maybe that caught him out ever so slightly. Powers back across the line, and with a minute 28 seconds left on the clock, time for 2 more laps probably. I'm not entirely sure where the leader is. In fact, the leader I think is somewhere in the final sector, so yes, they will be starting their final lap this time by. And David Lawrence has 1 more lap to go. We're hearing a gearbox issue for John Wyatt. Gearbox exploded seemingly on the VW Golf as it went down the back straight. Leader then comes across the line to start the final lap, and there goes David Lawrence then through Rich's corner and on course for a race victory, a dominant race victory in the end. Shame that Paul Roderson's Cupra ended up retiring to the pit lane, but to be fair, Paul wasn't really giving David too much of a hard time, was he? David Lawrence had already established a healthy lead, and the Area Motorsport prepared car, Area Motorsport known for producing, generally speaking, pretty bulletproof cars, and his car has run faultlessly up until this point. And as he makes his way down the Bentley Straight, he's now half a lap or so away from claiming the first victory of the weekend, which means it's time for Scott to make the journey over to the Parc Fermé area, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from him and class winners, overall top 3, whoever he can find in the Parc Fermé area. There's the 25 car. It's one of the older Seat Cupras of Matt Anderson, who I believe is the last car still running in what's become a bit of a race of attrition. 4 cars, by the looks of it, not going to make the finish, but this one turns its way through the final corner, and David Lawrence is now headed for the checkered flag and about to celebrate victory. The first race of the weekend at Snetterton then is won by David Lawrence. He claims victory in race 1 for the RacingLine Volkswagen Audi Racing Championship here on the Snetterton 200 circuit. Lawrence the winner, and we wait quite some time now for what should be Tim Evans in second, but Kerry Lewis actually has been coming back at Tim quite substantially over the last couple of laps. I don't know whether Tim is maybe nursing some sort of an issue. Will Tim be able to stay in second position? This is for a class win as well within Class M. Here they come, they're absolutely nose to tail, but it will be Tim Evans in the Audi TT who stays ahead, and Kerry Lewis in the number 18 car, the VW Golf Mark 5 GTI has to settle for third, but those two are separated by only 0.3 of a second at the line. Oliver Divine King and Chris Garnham coming through to complete the top 5 runners overall. Waiting for the rest of the field to make their way through, and Stephen Watson next home. There he goes in his Scirocco. David Richardson next, in theory, in the number 50 car. Yes, he is, because Jonathan Halliwell wasn't able to catch him before the end of the race. And then Dawn Butcher should be the last car home. Here she comes, Dawn Butcher across the line, and finishes in 11th position. Matt Anderson, the only driver 1 lap down, which is impressive given it's a short lap, and quite a variety of speed there across the various classes. And only the 1 car in the end slipping off the lead lap. The winner then was David Lawrence, with Tim Evans coming home in 2nd position, Kerry Lewis in 3rd, and those two, the top 2 within their class as well. Oliver Divine King was 4th, ahead of Christopher Garnham, with Paul Huggins, Chris Adams, Stephen Watson, David Richardson and Jonathan Halliwell completing the top 10. Then it was Dawn Butcher 11th, Matt Anderson in 12th position. And we lost, unfortunately, John Wyatt. We're hearing gearbox dramas. Paul Roderson with an unknown issue from 2nd position, retiring to the pit lane as well. So too did Paul Dunningham, and Harley Young, a non-finisher also.